Hey guys, AGO Studios here. Welcome back to another video. I know it's been a while since I last uploaded, since I've been pretty busy with a lot of things from school, work to holidays, and I have been terribly busy with procrastination issues since I suck at not procrastinating when it comes to things like uploading these videos. But without further ado, let's get into it. Here we are. As you can see, I've kind of gone backwards on the overall menu design aesthetic, and I've kind of tried a new design here. And as for this version, I'm considering this the first official beta version, since the game was in an alpha state for a while. And a lot has changed, which I think you will see more of. And you can see here, we've got our main menu design for main music. We've also got these. These buttons do work, but the UI, which is 3D designed, needs to be retweaked. This button doesn't do anything yet, but I do have plans for it at some point. And as for this button here, it just tells you that the game doesn't have multiplayer yet. Because as of the development of the current beta and most likely demo, when it gets to that point, it will not have support for it. But I do have plans for it, and this is going to be the only project that I have multiplayer support for because, well, multiplayer is just complicated to work with, and I don't think I will ever do that ever again. Another thing I wanted to showcase was the overall environment increase. After changing some of the mountains, I've added a few other features, like fun little transparent mushrooms that I've 3D modeled in the past. Some models are slightly older than others when it comes to 3D modeling choices. Also, I can go through my weapons by scrolling. I have plans to implement a weapon bar to track how much ammo you have or something like that. I'm not really sure what I'm planning to do with the weapons, but it's still too early to tell. I've also upgraded some of the building designs here, from this one to the others. And this one hasn't changed much. I've kept this one relatively the same. This one was a newer addition, where you can pretty much just go inside here and there's nothing else to do, but that's just one of many buildings. The other one was over here. I was trying to remember where it was, but yeah, this one. As you can see, I've added a bed here. As you can see, I've added a bed, and I've also changed the overall design of this structure, because if you go back and look at that same video that I last uploaded, which I have no idea how many months ago it was, but this here is where the player will set their spawn point and whatnot, because I'm still trying to work out how to make this game concept work as I develop it in its current beta stages. I can officially say, though, that I am out of the alpha phase, where I was developing some of the overall mechanics. Most of it is fairly finished when it comes to the environment. However, the overall weapon mechanic that I wanted to do, where the guns will serve to aid the player in the puzzle system that I have planned, I haven't gotten that fully implemented yet. Most of these guns still don't do much, and there's actually quite a few that I have yet to add. that I've yet to make, but I have more plans to go over that in the future. As for inventory, as you can see here, I have this set up. However, inventory is still not nearly in a working state where I can pick stuff up. At some point, I may make support for players to be able to change their keys. So if you didn't want to use C to crouch, you could do Control, and maybe you didn't want Shift to be running, and you maybe wanted that to be Control instead. So there's quite a few things that I'm thinking about potentially adding, but it depends on if I get to them in that window. As for another thing I've added a day and night cycle. And also, I don't think it was in the other video, where the clouds moved. So I've added that feature since the clouds were pretty stagnant, if I remember correctly. And if they were moving, I think I tweaked it a bit more. The other thing is that I have made a new model for the mountains that I have here now. Before it used to be more blocky, but now I'm going for a more kind of less blocked shaped design. So I've changed a few things over time. I can't remember all of them. What I do know is I don't think my trees had these little vines, if I remember correctly. I'm not 100% on that, so don't quote me on that. The other thing was triggers. I added a trigger for this guy. He's just a test design of a character. And he's mainly just for testing triggers. The other was the item that I may have picked up. I don't know where it is. The other is dialogue. After updating it to have audio support, which, frankly, I have to turn the volume down. There we go. It's not playing, but she would have dialogue typically. I've also redone her design. She is not an official model, but I've tweaked some of the things that this character model did not have. The eyes are my own design. Eventually, I want to 3D model my own version, but the only thing I can kind of do in the current case is legs and feet. So I can only 3D model legs and shoes, and that's about as much as I can do. There's also a few bugs I would like to mention for fun, as to talk about things that I intend to patch at some point. One of these bugs is this one. For some reason, when it comes to using AI, which I don't think I've mentioned it, but with this code that I got programmed with a language model, it just kind of takes no punishment system. It doesn't slow the player down or overall stop them from moving when they try to sprint. Instead, what it seems to be doing is creating this jittery effect where they're just kind of bouncing around. And not much movement is restricted. So I may be able to change that in the near future. As for inventory, I think I covered that, but if I hadn't, it's still something I'm working on. There's also a bug underneath this table, which a video should be playing for that. Okay, now that that's done playing, here are I think I've covered most of everything that I can recall for this recording so far. So, here is the ladder mechanism. I started adding this pretty recently, and I've reworked my cave system to be very different from the last few iterations. Now that I have the cave system, the only things that I need to do are add the mechanisms and eventually make a way for the player to reach the laboratory, which will be stored somewhere down here, and I'll obviously have to block that off for gameplay purposes, but that's something for later. But there's still a lot of open areas that feel very empty, and there's not a whole lot of gameplay mechanics yet for this current build. I want to eventually implement player health, which I will do when I get to adding enemies. After all, hunger and hydration are things that I will worry about later. Hunger will most likely be related to health after health has been implemented along with enemies, because I do want the player to eat. But I'm going to have to worry about providing a type of food source later. Now, let's get back up to the surface. Also, I don't know if you noticed, but I added this fog to try and make this environment feel more swampy. And so far, that's pretty much it, aside from... Hang on, I gotta get rid of that. You can see this here exists, so I think that implies exactly what it does. It takes a screenshot, and that was just a cheeky little message that I put there for fun. But pretty much, here's some of the, so see, some of these screenshots were taken older, but this is just to show that the player has a screenshot folder. But yeah, as you can see beforehand, the cave used to have this curve effect, and it cut off, and it was kind of weird, so I had to scale it in a certain way to fix that problem. And that's pretty much it for that part of the game. Now let's discuss some of the things that I have roadmaps to add at some point. Number one is to fix dialogue. Number two is to add a game manager, which basically gives your game structure to tell the game this is taking place here and here. So it's basically the thing that tells the game what parts of the story go where. It can also manage things like taking the player to a death screen if you want, but I think I'm just going to use it for taking the player places throughout the storyline, just so it's more cohesive. But there's still a lot of work to be done here in this current build. Especially like I mentioned, a lot of features are still fairly unfinished in this current build. But I have a lot more plans for that. But as I mentioned, my current plan for roadmaps of what I want to do when I have the time is to add more features like enemy and health, especially player health. Because the enemies are something that I have models for in the game, but they're not added into the game as functional yet. The other thing is this model will be replaced, like I said, but that's going to take a while to learn how to properly 3D model that kind of design. The other thing will be the inventory. As I mentioned, it's not finished yet. So I'm eventually going to be implementing that, which will require me to implement some ideas that I have for it, which I will be covering eventually. I will be also releasing some of the soundtracks from this game, such as the in-game audio, and the main game audio. There is one more thing I should mention, though. I forgot to mention it. For Aurora's dialogue, well, it doesn't work completely right now, since it's broken and I have to fix it. As I said, language models, when using them to program, they tend to break stuff that I've gotten set up. So this dialog box did work, and it would play sound when the text appeared, but it's still currently broken. But I managed to make it so you could left-click it, because before you had to shoot at the NPC to get rid of the dialog box, which I think was a bit of an unnecessary feature. Anyways, that being said, that is pretty much it. And all of the soundtracks that have been implemented so far for this project will be uploaded to this channel so that you can listen to it yourself. But other than that, there isn't too much I've added. Let me know what you think of the current build down below in the comments, and if you're a new viewer and you're interested in this project and you want to follow, you can subscribe here on YouTube, and if you want to see me working on this project live, you can check it out on Twitch. And if you want to know when I'm going live, you can check me out on Twitter, where I post every now and then when I'm going live. You can also follow me on itch, so you can get the release of these demos. You can also check me out on GitHub, where I will be posting some of the tools used in this project that helped with the development process, like the material holder, some of the other tools, so if you're interested in those, they will be made available. And that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!